shells inside, real celestial cries, auroras in the sky, starlings on a dare, murmurating air, silent dances like unanswered prayer. The times I wonder happening every day. The times I wonder happening every
Welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the mother-daughter travel team and publishers of the digital interactive Big Blend Radio and TV magazine and Parks and Travel magazine. You can see them both at bigblendmagazines.com. And you just heard Signs and Wonders. It's the title track to the brand new album by Birdsong at Morning, led by singer-songwriter Alan Williams, who's joining us in a couple seconds here, along with Darlene Wilson on guitar and Greg Porter on bass. This is available now. You can get it streaming, download it, go get it. CD Baby, all kinds of good places. But go right to their website. It's birdsongatmorning.com. And again, go to CD Baby. And welcome, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. Yeah, wherever we are. Where are you? You're in Massachusetts, right?
Yes, in Lowell, Massachusetts.
All right. We're in Tucson, Arizona. We're in the desert for right now. That will be changing.
I just have a whole...
Nancy's off and tripping. I knew it.
I got a whole, video in my mind
I
already.
I told you.
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nancy's always, getting into bands that should do rock operas, but I want to know, is this like a nature rock opera for you?
Yes, because
I knew it.
Okay.
Welcome to the show, Alan, while I interview Nancy.
Yeah, right. No, but I have a split screen, and I have a lady giving birth.
Well, that's their album Waterfall has split screens.
Now, split screen, and a lady's giving birth, and a butterfly is coming out of the cocoon.
Dude,
oh, wow. Beautiful. Well, that's kind of interesting, actually, because the whole album, we ended up making music, videos to go with every song, which is a little crazy. And then for the song Signs and Wonders, it's all shot in these various locations in Rhode Island. So it's like sort of interesting nature-oriented landscape shots, but also these presence of some sort of human beings. An artist out of Providence that does environmental sculpture and such, and I contacted her, and she made some things that we could fit into the environment and then just sort of film them. So there's no humans in the video. It's really about that sort of nature, beauty, discovery thing. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Your music does have this, this is maybe an odd thing to say, but it's got like an embryonic quality to it. I don't know if I've never used those two words together, but It is today. That's where it is. But there is this. I think it's because it's very intimate, but at the same time, there's this fluid water feeling where it allows you to be feeling what's going on around you. So it's atmospheric at the same time as being intimate, yet it's tender. But then it goes, okay, as soon as you get towards that atmospheric part, you're going to get a little bit of reality too.
Wow. Okay. That works for me. I mean, I think
something's in the water.
There's a couple
I don't
of
know.
different.
What are we drinking?
I don't know. The water just changed colors. No.
Wow. Okay. There's some things in your desert. All right. I think part of it musically is just that everything starts as a song, and so it has to work as a song. And I think that's where the intimate quality, it's always present. It's just my little voice and my little guitar most of the time. But then as a band and for the recordings, we really spend a lot of energy trying to create the right atmosphere to set that song. So you have always the song, always the intimate, direct presence, and then everything around it is meant to kind of create a little world that's particular to that song. So I love what you're just saying about, the flow around as well as the direct, because I think that's what we're aiming for anyway.
Yeah, and
Great.
the guitar part, what's interesting also in Signs and Wonders, and then, you go into, Won't Let It Go, right? And there's this guitar part in there that's almost going like, in an old Western film.
Right.
Like now we're in the desert. I feel like there's an ocean presence, and now we're in the desert. So welcome to Tucson. You know what I mean?
What used to be an ocean.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I love that guitar part in there.
Well, yeah, and that's that kind of guitar sound on that song definitely evokes. That's kind of a little bit of a cliche about Old West or Old Western, country Western rock and roll having that low bari guitar vibrato twang thing. And that song, Won't Let It Go, is maybe the closest to a standard kind of song that I've written. I usually don't write just straight ahead guitar chords, but that song popped into my head, and sometimes when a song just sort of comes fully formed, you don't want to ignore it. And so the Thomas Giuliano, who's a real good friend of the band, he plays electric guitar on a lot of the album. I mean, he came up with the sound and the riff. He just said, I think it's just calling for this. And as soon as he played it, I couldn't really imagine anything else. That sounds very right to me.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting contrast.
Yeah, it's good. But you give us atmosphere, and it's like it's a sense of place music where you visualize these things, but then it becomes this mindfulness, like you're like in someone's thoughts, which to me now you do have videos and film going on. Like this should all be parts of it. This should have its own movie.
That's what I felt like. We're about to see a movie now.
Yeah.
Well, so if you happen to have gotten the copy with the Blu-ray, there's a movie for everything. And I think there's a little bit of sense of I grew up, I was in college and making music when MTV came on the scene, and so many musicians were appalled by the whole notion of wedding visual to music and feeling like that was forced upon them, and I understand that. But for me, it's just another opportunity to extend whatever kind of creative expression you've got. So it's not that we made the music and then tried to figure out, okay, I guess we have to make videos. I was thinking about visual quality while we were writing the songs even. So I have a hard time separating out the music from the visual because it was always part of it from the inception. Now, that doesn't mean that my version, like my video, is your video. I think it's nice when people maybe can create their own movies. But it's interesting that some of the things you guys are talking about that's some of the imagery that's actually present in the videos we did make. So
well, that's cool. It's cool. I just love music that allows you to breathe and create your own thing. And that's, I think, what you really have is that breathing part. You set the stage, and it allows you to, that's the flow, and you can go, okay, I'm going to do this. I mean, you could change your clothes to every song, and that's awesome.
Okay.
No, I mean, you can change it up. You could,
Alrighty then.
No, but I mean, that's the beauty of it. You can set the stage, and each time it's going to be something different, and that's beautiful too. An album that you can keep listening to, and you're going to hear something different. You definitely have. I know they've been saying that about your album, but it's really true. Like, I didn't come up with that. It's real. It's there. You can keep listening and go, wow, that's so cool. It kind of takes me back to music that I grew up in my teens, and I was living in South Africa in Port Elizabeth, and there were a lot of different bands. Crowded House was out and big at the time. Crowded House and Simply Red, and certain bands were just so like taking you on this little journey, and it wasn't really poppy. It wasn't. There's a little blues in it, believe it or not. And when you start to listen to it now that I'm a little older and been around the block musically, I go like, wow, that stuff was really good. And I listened to yours, and it took me, as soon as I heard it, as soon as I started listening to your album, I was right back on the beach in Port Elizabeth. I was at the beach.
Wow.
I don't know. There's beach immediately. And it just went back to those days of knowing that you're really happy. There's like, oh my gosh, the one song, oh my gosh, Smiles of a Summer Night. There's that total joy of naughtiness.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a naughtiness.
I'm sitting right here.
I know, but this is where it goes back to those days. There's this naughtiness, but this pure joy in there, and it's just like this happiness, and I think we need that. And it reminds the beach. It is the beach, man. Or you could be out in a cabin watching fireflies, but for me, immediately was beach. Like this whole album to me is beach and sand. I don't know. That's just me.
Cool.
But
right.
everybody has something new. Yeah. Just happy about it. This is very cool. And Smiles of a Summer Night, going from that, and then that's the ninth track, right? I know the way music comes in for me, it can twirl around, but you have a shuffle. Now, is it Kahina Shuffle? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Kahina Shuffle, yeah.
Kahina Shuffle, okay. Those two going together, they could be like their own album, like their own little EP going out, like side A and B. Those two are like this little nugget of magic together. Did you guys plan it that way?
I love that you picked up. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I planned it exactly that way, but when you do try to sequence the album together, you are really trying to think about songs that maybe work together on their own, maybe in a smaller version. And I always did feel like those two songs kind of were wed in some form, and so as I'm moving the tracks around, I was moving them around as a pair. They just didn't seem like I could separate them. So that's really interesting that you would pick up on that. Wow, cool.
No, and it reminds me of like slack key guitar from Hawaii.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's my homage to that stuff. It's in a slack key tuning, and actually a lot of Birdsong at Morning stuff is in a slack key guitar tuning, but I don't necessarily play Hawaiian styled music, with the exception of Kahana Shuffle, which is, pretty simplistic versions, the best I could come up with. There's some incredible music in Hawaii, and so it's my little homage to that. And Kahana is a beach on the Big Island. It's a black sand beach in Lower Puna, which thankfully has survived the lava flow, but isn't too far away. Yeah.
We do interviews all the time about Hawaii, but we've never been there. Like we cover Hawaii so much that we should live there, but we're about to travel full time, so we won't be living anywhere. But we will. We could temporarily live there. But I wanted to go back to the beginning of the band and the name of the band, Birdsong at Morning. To me, that's how we rise. Nancy and I are these walkers in the morning. We walk. We have a Facebook group to get people out walking, so you hear the birds, and you can walk according to birds rising. And there's something about watching the sunrise, but there's this, you can tell the different species, you can tell the time of day, you can tell, you can tell who's around, you can tell what's going on, the season, according to the bird song. So I mean, to me, I just love this Birdsong at Morning. Where did this come from?
Well, so the phrase is part of a semi-famous Robert Louis Stevenson poem. I will bring you birdsong at morning, and I think it's starshine at night, and et cetera, et cetera. So So that's, I think it's his particular phrase. But to be honest, and here's where you're juxtaposing your naughty and your joy, I came upon the phrase because it's actually a little subheading chapter in the Joy of Sex, the Alex Comfort book from the 1970s.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And when I found that,
I remember
thought,
you talking about that, Mommy.
I'm sitting right here.
I know. I don't know if I want to look at you right now. Just kidding.
Well, you can just, one person can think of the Joy of Sex and the other can think of Robert Louis Stevenson, and we're fine. But I don't know. I held on to that.
Somebody just called M, as I recall.
That's a whole other book. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
you know,
hello.
Okay. But now Robert Louis Stevenson, didn't he have a big connection with Hawaii too? He lived there, didn't he? Yeah, he did.
Is that
Robert
right?
Louis Stevenson, he did live in Hawaii. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I need to look into that. That's cool. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hawaii thing is interesting because it is part of the whole. For in terms of Birdsong being a band, it's part of that history because Darlene, Greg, and I go back together for decades, and Greg and I have known each other since we were kids, teenagers in North Carolina. We came up to Boston to go to school at the same time, same place. We've been roommates, bandmates. Darlene was a well-established record engineer and producer in Boston, and she worked with both Greg and I in different contexts before we ended up with the band. The band got together because a number of us had really pursued music really seriously when we were younger, and then for many different reasons had put it aside. So Birdsong Morning sort of grew out of this conscious attempt to gather these friends around the living room and say, maybe we could just make music for fun just so we don't let that part of ourselves completely die off. And it was really interesting because you can get 7 or 8 people together and everyone's really awkward. No one wants to go first. No one has anything. So we'd play Beatles songs for a while, and then you kind of run out of Beatles songs to play. And I think interest in the whole project sort of kind of waned. But Darlene and I had gone to Hawaii, and we were trying to keep the sort of music vibe thing going, and decided we were going to be there for a couple of weeks. So we went to a music store and asked if we could rent some guitars just to keep music going. And they said, yeah, sure, feel free to take something off the wall over there. And I picked one up, and I strummed what I thought was going to be a certain chord, and it sounded completely bizarre. And someone said, oh, yeah, that's tuned to a C flat key tuning. I didn't really understand what that meant, so they showed it to me, and suddenly it was like a little gate that could open, and it meant that I might be able to start writing music from a new place, because I was a little afraid that I was going to just keep writing the same type of music that I had done when I was younger. So this was like a way of having an instrument in your hand, and the strings aren't giving you the sound you expect, so you suddenly have much more of a sense of discovery. So I was discovering this guitar and wrote the first song I had written after maybe a 12, 14-year drought, and came back and played it to Darlene and Greg. Yeah, played it to Darlene and Greg just as friends sitting around the living room, and I got to the first chorus, and they spontaneously harmonized on it, and suddenly it was, maybe we should get serious about making music, and that's where Birdsong got formed that day. Around a
that
song
is so awesome.
Written on Hawaiian flat key. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's cool. It felt like, yeah, and that was 10 plus years ago. So we've just been trying to make Birdsong the thing we want it to be. I mean, in some ways it's nice. We all have professions outside of this band, and so we get to do it the way we want to do it, at the pace we want to do it. There's really not a lot of pressure, you've got to put an album out this week, or there's a tour to do, or anything like that. So we're kind of free to just follow what interests.
I think that is so
Yeah.
amazing, cool. And a lot of artists are doing that now, and I think we're getting this music that is pure and authentic. It's the integrity of the musician without somebody saying, you will do this by this day, and that control factor, which sometimes does produce really cool music.
True.
But I mean, pressure creates something, right? But
sometimes you need that.
I think there's this integrity to music now, and eventually you're still going to get the pressure because you can't not put something else, you know. And I love the fact that the Slack Key opened it up for you and Hawaii. And yes, I just double checked myself. Robert Louis Stevenson did spend a lot of time in Hawaii, in Oahu. And I learned about that from Galen Quinn, an author who wrote an amazing book. She hung out with Michener before he passed, and he was in her novels, and it was as a real figure, and just amazing. But
wow, cool.
It's just fascinating. But have you heard of Makana, the Slacky guitarist? I just have to ask.
No, and I should.
Encourage you to, MakanaMusic.com. Okay. Check him out. He comes on our shows every year or so and tours teaching people about what Slacky is. I would never have known what Slacky was. I wouldn't have recognized it if it wasn't for him coming on our show and teaching us about Slacky. And I think that sometimes it's so great that you go in another place, a new place, and that's where inspiration comes from. You have to leave your comfort zone, and I think that's
a good
part
point.
Of creativity, right? Is like get out of the comfort zone, break the pattern, and now you're going to find something new. And it's so cool that you came back into music. I'm so glad. What's amazing is that you guys came back with a 4-CD box set. That's your debut album is 4 CDs.
Wow,
like that's
well,
so
yeah,
cool.
I mean,
wow.
Well, it was because if you haven't written a song for 12 years and you start writing, suddenly just a bunch of stuff spills out. So I just, a whole bunch of songs came in maybe a 6-7 month period. And we weren't really sure what to do. In fact, I think originally I was thinking much smaller scale and asked a really good friend of Greg and I, Ben Whitman, who's an amazing drummer, if maybe he would just do some light percussion on something. And we initially approached him like that, but then I started thinking, some of these songs feel like they might need like a real drum kit. And Ben said, well, there's an amazing studio in New York, Avatar, which it used to be called Power Station. It's where Springsteen, Roxy. It's a major facility, and he said it's a great sounding drum room, and I know one of the engineers there, and we can probably get a good rate if we can go in really short for just maybe a day or a day and a half. And that's what we did. We basically went in for a day and a half and tracked as many drums as we could, even for songs that were barely even a faint idea in my head, because there you go. So we ended up with, like 2 hours worth of music in various states of completion. And so we put out little EPs, little half-hour long CDs every 6 months with the idea that it was still one larger chunk of work, but we're just going to put it out, finish an album, put it out, and start working on the next one immediately. So eventually we collected them into what became the box set. And it's kind of bulky. We went all out. There's a very elaborate lyric booklet and a concert DVD. It's a big package of stuff. And so for that to be the debut is a little ostentatious. Some might say pretentious, and I'd say it's probably somewhere between the two.
I say it's badass.
But
I think it's about being what you want to do and what happens. You see, but you still talk about having that pressure. You don't have to have the label going wah, 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 but you still have that pressure. And no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be some kind of pressure that goes, okay, I'm going to push your button here. And it does, it just is in a different form, but at least it's yours, And it's your own button, no matter what. At the end of the day,
you pushed your own button.
I love that, and I love doing. To me, there's something about. I know CDs are. I mean, where are we going with that? I mean, are we going to be all just downloads now? Because I like having something in my hands. I mean, I know we do digital magazines, but you can still print them if you really wanted to. There's something.
I mean, I think we're moving to a place where no one thing is common. So a lot of folks would prefer to download or stream, and they might even just prefer to have random songs come at them in an unpredictable fashion, not even attached to playlists or albums. But there are other people who do like to hear something that's maybe one artist for a chunk of time, and another set of folks who still like to have something tangible in their hands. And for those musicians who want to go there, it becomes less a prerogative that you have to press something and package something, but rather one way of expressing yourself. So I kind of feel like since CDs or DVDs or Blu-rays are somewhat devalued in the market, it means if somebody bothers to do it, they're going to put more effort into creating an entire package that's worth somebody spending a little extra money so that they get a different experience. We found that there's actually it's a small group, but it's a really they're very serious. They take their music seriously, of kind of audiophiles, and they're really into high resolution audio and surround sound mixes and all that stuff. And they've been very supportive of our work. I think in some ways that community looks at a band like us, because we're just doing this on our own, that we bother to take the time to make surround mixes and to put out packages like this. They almost feel like they're somewhat obligated to support us because we're supporting the thing that they love and that they respond to. And it's been really nice to get to know that community. And to be honest, I guess I'm kind of part of that community. I buy those things too, and I'm really interested in when other people make that kind of music. So it may be that eventually there's just thousands and thousands of little niches that a handful of people are happy about and enough to maybe sustain and support, and it's less about this hegemonic one major star rules everything. I'd be happy about that.
I think the whole world is going that way. I really do. I mean, we're getting down to, listen, we want our food from the local farm. We want to go back to knowing and having a community. I think that's the thing.
Yes.
It's not this community where we don't know. It's like this community where we get to know each other, but it's one that, Facebook groups did well, and Facebook gets to make money off of advertising from it. But at the same time, you see people connecting, and people want to have that connection over something they enjoy. And so people will recommend things. They will say, have you heard this? There's a discussion. We used to be able to go into, a record store and listen together and have like little listening parties. And now it's changed, and it's just changed. We have more tools. I don't think, I think we just have to embrace it all, because there's something for everybody. It's like we're living in the land of Netflix now. It's like it's different, and I'm glad for Netflix. Thank goodness.
Well, it's like the thing comes to you individually, but then you have this impulse that you still want to share it. So you tell your friends about what's on Netflix, or you create a playlist and you can share a link, and it's a different way of thinking about community than necessarily all being in the same room at the same time. But it doesn't mean it's still not community. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. And then when you see people, or you go to a concert, or a gig, a performance, it's like extra special. It's like, dude, they played that note,
yeah, you
man.
are in the same room.
Yeah. So tell me about performing, because you listen to this. Everybody, again, Signs and Wonders, the album by Birdsong at Morning. When you listen to this, there are orchestral pieces. That's why Nancy, I know you always people got to go back and do rock opera, his production. Yeah. And I'm hearing this, but it's like nature. Like, this is a nature orchestra production. I don't know, nature rock opera. But
it's the build-up.
You have this is like you have an orchestra behind you.
We do much of the time, and we're actually. So in terms of performance, that's fairly limiting. we have to make the music work in all sorts of settings, and I think the most common performance really is actually of me solo, and then sometimes it's Darlene and Greg and I trying to convey the songs in a different way. But in the next few days, we're actually having a big concert up here in Lowell, where we are going to have a 20-piece orchestra and a choir coming in to sing, and drums and guitars, and it'll be probably twice as many people on stage as in the audience. But it's a way for us to try to recreate the sound of the record in a live setting. We've done it a couple of times, so we know that it's doable, and it's so much fun.
I bet.
Especially if you make the record, and it's fun to stand there and conduct the strings even in the studio. It's like, wow, that sounds amazing. But then on stage, and there's an audience, and what's kind of interesting is I always assumed that you'd hire string players, and they'd have really kind of cynical viewpoints, and just where's my check and I'll be out of here. But instead, they all get really invested in the whole idea of some self-releasing band putting this big show together, and they're incredibly supportive of me because I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of writing for strings or conducting them, and they'll very politely say, did you want that to be up bow or down bow? And I'm thinking, I don't know, rainbow. I don't know. What are you talking about? And they'll
I
say,
like that.
Do you want it to sound like this? And they'll play it, or like this. And say, oh, like that. Well, then that's down bow. Okay, great, then down bow. So they're really patient with that, and I think in a way that they might not be with everybody, but they seem to recognize that we're just trying to do something to the best of our ability. And I feel like that notion of community then extends. It's Darlene and Greg and I, that's the core group, and then there's another ripple of Ben and Thomas who play on the records. And then a lot of the same string players there's a couple of string players that have been on almost every record we've done and most of the shows we've played. And it's just nice to think how community just continues to extend itself.
I love this. I love this. And when you're talking about, the down bow and everything, and I know that you teach yoga, so I'm like, okay, he's going into a new downward dog and going with a different kind of feeling to it, But it's interesting. This is just, I think, something that people can just calm down to and be transported, and I think we need that. But you know what? I want to play "Smiles of a Summer Night."
Okay.
Don't you think?
Okay,
We've been talking about
totally
this. Don't you think that would?
Yeah, we were just talking.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's play that. And everybody, here it is again. Go get the album. It's out now. Signs and Wonders. You can go to birdsongatmorning.com, and you can also go to Birdsong at Morning on CD Baby to get the album. Of course, stream it online and download it as well. But here it is from the album. It is Smiles of a Summer Night, and the album again is Signs and Wonders.
Clouds above my head, clouds above my head, ever-drifting, shape-shifting, sun eclipsing, whispering, softly, 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 like a child. Laughing in the rain, laughing in the rain, joyously, carelessly, recklessly, promising something, 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 something wild, like the smile of a summer night, the smile of a summer night, smile of a sultry summer night. The ground beneath my feet, the ground beneath my feet, the wet grass and warm sand, the soft mossy carpet, and calling, calling, calling me to dance. Magic in the air, magic in the air, electrostatic, enigmatic, chain reaction, catching the lightning, lightning, lightning in my hand, counting the stars in the summer sky, stars in the summer sky, stars in the eyes wide open sky.
joy of sex. Welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa. I wanted to say that so bad.
No, but this is like theater to me.
I know. It's an awesome.
I feel like I'm in a movie.
I know. It's so cool because you didn't expect that.
Be the joy of sex.
You did not expect the fanfare at the end. I felt like we went from coast to coast. We ended up in New Orleans, and they're going, yeah, we're going to have a parade down the street for you.
The dynamics are awesome.
I know. Everybody, that was Smiles of a Summer Night, and again, from the album Signs and Wonders by Birdsong at Morning, and go get the album, birdsongatmorning.com. That's the best place to go. And we have Alan here. Alan, did you want a big fanfare for that?
I mean, the album's kind of interesting. There's a lot of nature imagery, but the other part of the album is that, especially when we started looking at the video stuff, is it's a lot about Lowell. It's a lot about the city that we're living in, that I teach in. That's historically a big part of American history, and there's a national historic park here. One of the parts of the Lowell community is a group that's they were former students. They're all kind of drummers and brass players and such, and they call themselves the Party Band, and they're kind of a anarchic collective. They don't really have a single leader. They don't do anything standard, but they would show up in Lowell kind of spontaneously, and suddenly there'd be a parade. Like, what was that? After a while, everyone said, okay, that's the Party Band. The Party Band now has become a part of the Lowell cultural scene. So I approached them and just said, would you guys be willing to be a part of this recording? I was a little nervous about it because, we've done string orchestra stuff on a lot of us, but we've never done any kind of horns like that. But that song in my head, I pictured a parade. And it's that sort of New Orleans kind of parade, and that's, I think, their vibe too. So I went ahead and recorded it. Actually, the truth of the matter is we made the video with them out in the streets parading before we recorded their parts. So by that point, I was committed. Whether it worked or not, it was going to have brass on it. But I'm really happy about it. So I'm glad you guys liked it. That's great.
There's that pressure button again. I love it. You remember when Fleetwood Mac first got back together, back when,
which time
Clinton became president, and they I can't remember the album. Was it something with the dance?
Well, Don't Stop was the Clinton theme song, but the song you may be thinking of is Tusk, which has a marching band on it.
The USC marching band.
Right.
That's right, Tusk. And that I remember seeing them perform on stage with that, and I was like, oh my God, look at that! I'm a huge fan of the old school Fleetwood Mac, like Peter Green and John Mayall and all that. I'm like, that's my thing. But I respect Fleetwood Mac. I mean, they put out some incredible music that changed the landscape. But when the USC marching band came up, I was like, I had no clue that I would like it that much. I did not know. I was going to go crazy about that. That was cool. When Tusk and Lindsey Buckingham always pushed Tusk and wanted Tusk. I remember having that album in South Africa back in those days, having Tusk and going, I don't know why I bought it, but it just because, and I just did. It was that the art of an album, and they put all kinds of cool art and liner notes and everything, and I was like, oh, I'm getting this, and he really pushed for that song, and the band at the time didn't care about it. He was like, no, this is where we're going. Things are changing. And the band's like, no, we're doing this. No, but look at now. Well, now he's fired.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember when that came out. I remember thinking when I first, the DJs would be like, all right, you guys, we got the new Fleetwood Mac coming up. And this was after Rumors, right? So this is the follow-up album. And I'm thinking, okay, well, let's hear it. And it's this weird sound collage. And there's barking going on and some weird drum break and then this marching band. And I remember thinking that it was the most weirdly psychedelic thing that you could imagine in the late 70s coming on the radio. I went out and bought the album immediately because it wasn't what everybody expected it to be. So I'm a big fan of Tusk. I know now a lot of people are, but for a long time, you wouldn't necessarily admit to having Fleetwood Mac. Everybody obviously did, but it was so kind of oversaturated that nobody wanted to talk about it. but I think Tusk is an amazing piece of work just because it's audacious. It takes chances.
And who didn't want to go record in the Brick House? Like, seriously. And who wouldn't want to go and record with Mick Fleetwood on drums? Seriously, I would.
Right.
And just him and John McVie, but every single band member that has passed through the world of Fleetwood Mac has brought something to the table and changed the band in some ways, done something incredible on their own or together with the band, as the drama, whatever. But that is just one of those most fascinating bands ever, just in gossip, whatever. But their music, each one they went for it. As far as I'm concerned,
what's kind of interesting, what's interesting to me is that Fleetwood and McVie are the constant. They're the drum and bass are the same folks on every Fleetwood Mac album. And the records themselves are pretty different depending on who else is in the band. But it's interesting that a rhythm section can lend itself to all those different styles and still kind of pull it together. Going back to the Peter Green stuff, that's that's a completely different band. Except
still psychedelic.
It's still psychedelic. It's got a blues something, but it's. And then when Christine came in and sort of focused more on songs, it's a different. I don't know. The history of that band is pretty fascinating. I feel like the Rumors era stuff obviously overshadows everything, but a deeper reading of that band's history, I think, would be worth somebody doing.
Like a real good documentary, like from everyone's perspectives, because there was all the, tripping out over here and becoming, joining a cult and, being found in the streets. There's but I think there's this purity to each one who just really had it in that I don't care about anything else but this at this point. But we're going to have relationship stuff, but we're going to have this drive of putting. I think they all really put what they wanted to do out in the forefront, and I think that's unique. Now it's happening, but
it's really really difficult when you put super creative people together. It doesn't always work. No, it's incredibly fun and interesting to watch, and you and I know that.
Yeah.
It is really interesting because it just depends on kind of the deal of the day, if I can put it that way, how this person wakes up and how that person wakes up, and their mood at the time, and what kind of makes one person excited, the other one goes, oh, no, I don't think so. And it could be just their mood. The next day, go, oh, man, that's cool. And then the other one's like, no, I'm over it now. There's all that back and forth between creative people, and at the end, they still end up producing something and of value, and you always, at least I do, always wonder, well, I wonder what it would have been if each person had their own way with what they wanted. Like if you had 10 people in a band, or 3 people, or 4 or 5, whatever, let's say you have 5. You'd have 5 versions of the same song. They would all be a bit different or completely different, and then the public could decide which ones they like.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
No, but I mean, okay, so here's your album with one song done 10 ways by each member of the band calling their own shots.
Yeah.
I love
How
that
do you balance
idea.
that?
It's a social. I'm going to just call up, what's his name that does Survivor, and say, hey, I got a new
Survivor
show
for you.
Of the song. I've got a new show for you.
Song Survivor.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of that energy is pretty interesting, because you're right. When all these creative people throw their energy in, it might just sort of explode against one another and sort of not be able to go, almost create stasis. On the other hand, if everyone's flowing in the similar direction, the energy propels you further than any one person would have been able to go. And that's usually when the most amazing stuff happens. Yeah.
But then there's a person who's all gung-ho, and they're like, yeah, love it. But in the back of their mind, they're going, I really don't like this. Or I would have done it different, but I'm just going to shut up. Yes, dear.
Yeah.
It's on my honey-do list.
No.
But anything for a quiet life.
I think you can hear that. I think you can hear that. I think you can.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I do.
You can hear it when people do it.
Birdsong. Yeah, with Birdsong, I think when we started the band, I said, you guys, I've been in other bands. We've all been in other bands, and I can't live through that again. So here's the deal.
Yeah.
I want this to be my stuff, and I'm going to call the shots. I'll finance it. I want you guys to participate. I want you to have input and all of that, but when a final decision comes down to it, I want it to be mine. If we can agree to that from the outset, then we don't ever have to question that again. And they were willing to do it. It also meant, that I shoulder a lot of the when it's time to do the dirty work. It's going to be me because
you get the
it's my project.
button.
So okay, I get that. But it's definitely meant that we haven't had that kind of fighting, struggle, clashing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a much more joyful place to be. It may not result in, maybe you don't get that cataclysmic sort of energy propelling things forward, but at the same time, we're still speaking to each other another decade or two down the road. And, as I say, I've known Greg for 40 years and Darlene for 25 or 30 now.
Yeah.
So, I almost rather preserve those relationships than ever create another song if it has to be one or the other.
Business and leadership, it doesn't mean that you're squishing creativity. It's about, this is my vision, this is what I'm doing. And, I remember our band, oh, good Lord, no, because I thought everybody, I don't know where this fits in politics. I don't want to go there, but
it fits in comedy.
No. All hell broke loose, and then try to make you can't please everyone, and then you're just dealing with drama and the band drama. We're back in Fleetwood Mac land, but sometimes that works for you, but sometimes it doesn't, and it becomes like, where do you want your life? Do you want to live in drama, or do you want to create and be happy? And we're all going to have stuff to be able. We're all going to have drama in our life, and we can write about it, we can sing about it, we can do what we want with it, but we don't need it in that sphere. And I think there's there's. I know Nancy and I do creative projects together, and then it's like, okay, this is your thing, this is yours, and then we still like, no. But if a third person came in and tried to do it, like, good luck.
No.
You have to have those dynamics, but if you went in the onset, there you go, and that's your vision.
It's the same. Yeah. I used to do the exhibits for an art association in San Fernando Valley. And I got elected to put the exhibits that meant you found the venue for the art exhibit, and then you took everybody's paintings and you hung them where you thought they looked good. And then all hell broke loose, and you'd get phone calls and people would complain, and you can't put my painting next to her because I don't like her, or we don't speak anymore. And there's all this drama. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I remember putting one lady's paintings upside down in the men's room over the doorway. And then I'm like, I don't think I need to do this anymore. Yeah, and I'm like, I thought, okay, I get that actors and musicians kind of Hollywood style do that sometimes because you hear about that. But I have never heard of artists doing what I saw. And I was
have you heard of Andy Warhol?
Well, okay, yeah, but he was...
I guess. No, it's there. Have you heard of Salvador Dali? No, I could give you a list.
Okay, but none of... Sorry to all those artists. None of you were on those levels.
No.
Just saying.
No, oh my gosh, no. It is about you see, creative people have a creative vision, and it's about that. It's the balance of vision.
No, but why do you have to put everything in the straight line? Are you talking about the bottom of the pictures or the top of the pictures? Do you want it to go wavy
not
gravy?
Look at me when you're
do you
saying
want
that.
Wavy gravy? And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have one room to put 160 something paintings.
Alan, I have to take Nancy to her therapist now.
No, and it's all the paintings that are mostly green should be on this wall.
Oh my gosh!
And I was like, boring.
Wow.
Yeah. The hardest thing for a creative person is to know that you make some sort of work of art, and then you do not control it. People will see it, hear it, absorb it, work with it in ways that you can't imagine or anticipate. And you just have to come to terms with that. If someone wants to hang your picture upside down in the men's room, that's what they're going to do.
I thought it was pretty funny. She got most of the views.
Yeah. Well, there you go. See, in today's age, right? It's how many views, how many likes did you get? You know.
Right.
Well, everybody noticed her painting.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, Alan, final question. Except for we do want to talk about Steady in Blue and close with that song. But final question. Okay, you're going to go and perform 3 songs from the album with musicians that have passed on that you always wanted to play or see and perform. And you can go anywhere, okay? They've passed on. These are like, legends. You could have, Jimi Hendrix. You could have, whoever. Somebody who's passed on. Three that because you can bring them back. You're going to bring them back for one night. And you're going to perform somewhere, these 3 songs. So we want to know where and who are you raising from the dead?
Oh, my God. You're not going to ask me which songs, though. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I am going to ask you. What are the 3 songs?
Oh, damn. Songs. Okay. The 3 musicians that I would bring back from the dead to work with, that's, wow.
How much fun is that? You don't have to dig.
Okay. I would bring back Marvin Gaye to sing Everything.
Oh, cool.
And, because still to this day, I can't find anyone who moves me as much as his voice. Let's see. In terms of making music together, I'd bring back Nicky Hopkins, the session piano player on all the great British rock of the 60s and 70s. He plays all the good stuff on the Beatles, Stones, solo records.
The people that no one knows, right?
Yeah,
like
but he there's not a record that people have that he's not on. He's going to be on somebody's radio, and his piano playing is just always stupendously beautiful. And then I'd bring, it's not the right feel necessarily, but I just miss him. I'd bring back Levon Helm to play drums.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, I think it is a really good fit. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh man.
I'd love to hear Marvin Gaye, Levon Helm, Nicky Hopkins, and me. That would be really fun.
Oh, what a trip! That is so cool. Where are you going to play? Where?
Oh,
anywhere in the world.
Probably if it were up to, actually, here's a weird thing, but I know where I'd play, which is in my ex-wife's club. That might, a quick digression. I was in a band with Greg and Ben called Knots and Crosses, late 80s, early 90s, and the lead singer, Carol Noonan, she and I were a couple. We got married. We got divorced, all in the course of the band. She has since opened an amazing, it does happen. She's opened a beautiful space in the middle of nowhere, Maine, a converted barn that's just gorgeous. And she gets fairly well-known people to come up and play. People pay $100, $150 tickets to sit really close to these famous people. But the room is beautiful, and the sound is gorgeous, and the energy in the room is so positive that I would love to take my little resurrected band up there and play. Plus, it would show Carol that I know some famous people too, so ha-ha.
I love this. See, there's this balance in this album and
conversation. Like an open-air amphitheater or something.
I know. It's always something about outside. Playing outside is the best. That is the best. So what songs?
Oh, man. Okay.
I know.
Well,
I'm so evil. Not really.
Let's put it onto the new record, I guess. Well, I think I would love to hear Marvin Gaye sing Steady in Blue, so we're going to play that, I think, which is awesome. So I'd love to hear him play that. So we'll do Steady in Blue. I think I'd like to hear Levon play a song called Won't Let It Go. I know we talked about that a little bit. I think he would get a really nice feel on that. And then There's not a lot of piano on our stuff, but I could hear Nicky Hopkins doing something gorgeous on. Well, he do some. There's a long, very ethereal orchestral ballad called "All the Sadness" that I think he would be great on. So those would be the three off the record that I would do with that group.
Awesome, awesome. I thought you would choose My Ghost just because of the question. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I love that song, by the way. That's one of my favorites on the album. You also covered the Logical song from Supertramp, which is interesting too. What was the decision for that?
Yeah, it's a decision I partly regret now, but I think all of our records we've done. Well, that's for a whole other reason, but all of our records, even the little EPs, each had a cover song, and I was trying to find songs that might not be expected and to do them in ways that are different from the originals. So just sort of keeping up that, okay, if there's a formula to Birdsong, I probably will have some strings, and I need to come up with an interesting cover song. But a lot of the songs that I've ended up picking come from that time period in my life, in that late 70s, coming of age, really discovering pop music as its contemporary. A lot of the songs come from that period. So I was thinking about, well, what songs do I remember from that point in my life that might be worthy? And Greg and I both were fans of that song when we were kids. When I started looking at the song, though, I thought, because, sometimes you look at the songs that you liked when you were 14, and the lyrics are unsingable. Like there's just no way I can do that song. But this one, I thought the lyrics are actually better than I remember them being. And if you change the musical setting, and I think also just given the political climate these days, I think people hear that song really differently in our version. A lot of people that have listened to it said, wow, that's really changed my sense of what that song means, which to me is the whole point of doing a cover, is to show how this weird, porous thing that is a song, it is an entity, but it's so open to interpretation, so malleable, it can mean so many different things and can be played and performed in lots of different ways. So that's why the Logical song. And then we developed it to this really long, extravagant arrangement thing. But it mostly starts in a much more intimate, quiet, low way. It's not at all the same Supertramp energy.
It's interesting, especially when you take a cover song that, if it's from a concept album and then you change it up your way, it's like people are like, what? You took it out of the concept, man. Yeah, it's
right.
That's the beauty of art. It's mine. It's all mine. It is. So we're going to play Steady in Blue, but before we go, I want to thank our sponsor of today's show, which is the National Parks Arts Foundation. We love them. We do a First Friday Arts and Music show, Arts and Parks, where we cover artists that stay in a national park unit for a month as an artist in residence. So if you're a poet, a filmmaker, a writer, if you are an artist, musician, you could be staying in places like the Dry Tortugas on Loggerhead Key, your own private island for a month. Seriously. And you have to take someone with you because they have to boat you in. And when I say private island, we mean it. And you could be swimming with turtles and stuff.
Without clothing.
You get to create. You do an event, and there's places like Chaco Cultural Historical Park up in northern New Mexico with all these ancestral, ruins. It's amazing. Then there's Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Just saying, Alan.
Yep.
These amazing opportunities come in. There's a lot of different parks as well. The thing to do is to go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org, sign up for their newsletter, and that way you'll get the notices. They get grants for different parks, and then they go, hey, everybody, jump on board now. And you need to jump on board now, submit your resume, and hopefully get selected. And if you don't, try again. There's also Gettysburg, and they also have like Big Bend National Park in Texas. They have a special program for military veterans as well. It's just incredible. So again, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. Thank you all for joining us here on Big Blend Radio. We appreciate you, listeners. You rock. For our schedule, go to bigblendradio.com. You'll see our different shows listed there, and you can listen as they go live or anytime at your leisure. But here it is. We're going to play Steady in Blue, again, from Birdsong at Morning, their latest album out now called Signs and Wonders. Get it on CD Baby or just go to birdsongatmorning.com. birdsong@morning.com. Thank you so much, Alan, for joining us. It's been such a pleasure.
It's been fun.
Absolutely. Really thrilled to talk to both of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Behave with, life. Don't. Go have more joy. Here it is, everyone. Study in Blue.
Silent and stark, scattering shards of broken dark. Time takes its time, the coffee grows cold, waiting for something to take hold. Staring at hands, stare at the floor. Stare at the cup that begs for more. The light comes and goes, the hours will pass, placing the flowers in the glass. Studying blue, a studying blue. Pacing the room, a study in blue. Blending the oil, the brush to the page, finding a grace to imitate, seeking out shade and coloring shade, capture the light before it fades. Study in blue, a study in blue. Shadows in life, negative